off as like a sort of pro forma stamping kind of thing, like the historians note it, check, check, check. The rest of the public generally isn't even like totally aware that it's happening, right? But all of this is the first time this has happened since 2020 and the images that we just saw on the steps of the Capitol.
Yeah, Hallie, and it really was remarkable because once you were inside this complex today, you would have been forgiven if you didn't notice anything that suggested that January 6, 2021 had ever happened, except perhaps for the increased police presence in and around this building. It was outside with that huge fence up around the Capitol complex and an even greater law enforcement presence. There was the reminder that what we saw 4 years ago here was not normal. I think there was a significant effort today on the part of lawmakers, on the part of the vice president, to return January 6th to normalcy, to make it, as you say, just another normal pro forma part of this process in which lawmakers essentially are witness to but not involved in getting the final results of the presidential election. And you saw it even in a statement from former Vice President Pence, sort of saluting Vice President Harris for taking the step today with some dignity to certify an election in which she lost. I think for different folks, different parts of this were true. For Republicans, I think there was a desire to move on and try to continue to perhaps forget what happened 4 years ago. For Democrats, a desire to remember it, but also, again, to put a stamp on this as saying this is the right way to do this process.
This is also, the first step, you could say. Inauguration will be the next big step and kind of the start of it, of total control of Republicans in the House, in the Senate, in the White House. Interestingly, Mitch McConnell, I don't think was involved in the certification today, right? Talk us through the tone that Republicans are setting here and the expectation now for the next, let's say, month on the Hill.
Yeah, it was interesting that McConnell, who last spoke to Donald Trump, I think on January 6th or shortly before, was not present here today. No on-the-record comment from his team as to why. For Republicans, it was a celebratory tone today. You heard some of it every time there was a state announced for Donald Trump, probably the loudest. The delegation from Texas really making a ruckus, cheering on Trump. You got to remember, for Republicans, there is a desire to prove that they are worthy of and will not screw up this trifecta, this opportunity to control the House, the Senate, and the White House. It's why it was so important to House Republicans to elect Mike Johnson on that first ballot back on Friday. I think it was why they wanted today to go off without a hitch, to tell people who might be worried by the hijinks of the last 2 years of the House Republican leadership of that chamber that, yes, in fact, they can handle what's going to be coming their way starting January 20th.
Well, starting January 20th, we may potentially, as early as then, see some of these pardons. And as we just showed folks, Donald Trump has been pledging to do for these January 6th rioters. I want to show a letter. This is from a lawyer for Enrique Tarrio. He's the leader of the Proud Boys. He's serving 22 years in prison. That is the longest sentence. He's now asking President-elect Trump officially for a full pardon here. We can show it to folks. What have you been hearing about how soon this may happen? Is this like a day one action? Is this a week 3 action? It sounds like Donald Trump will do it, given he said repeatedly he would.
He has said repeatedly he would, although the scope, as you played in those clips, has changed over time, the scope and the speed. I do think he's going to pardon at least some of these folks on Inauguration Day. That's the information that we've gotten from him. That's the information we've gotten from his team. I and my colleague Ryan Riley put together a story a couple of weeks ago now that suggested the numbers on day one won't be huge just because they don't have the infrastructure to go through case by case. If he's going to pardon nonviolent offenders, that's a big group. Perhaps as many as 1,000 people, and could technically include Enrique Tarrio, who wasn't at the Capitol on January 6th, but was convicted of organizing the attack itself.
Garrett Haake, live for us there on the Hill today. A busy one for you. Garrett, thank you very much.